And the speaker is the CTO and the co-founder of the company, Amr Awadallah. Welcome him on stage, please.
Thank you for coming to my talk. My name is Amr Awadallah. I'm one of the founders of Cloudera. I am from Egypt originally, though I've been living in the United States for the last 18 years now. And today I'm going to tell you about Cloudera, what we do, and about our story. But before that, I wanted to get a show of hands from the room to help me calibrate my talk and the level at which I give it. First, if you can give me a show of hands if you heard the term big data before. Just heard the term big data before. Good. So I'm saying about 80% of the room, maybe 90% even raising their hand. Hopefully the remaining 10% are simply just looking at their phones right now. They know what big data is, but they were busy with their phones. My next question, how many of you heard this term? Hadoop. Hadoop. Okay, see, it's much smaller number now. I'm saying about 10% of the room raised their hand. I'll explain Hadoop through my talk. If I say the word BI or business intelligence, please raise your hand if that means something to you. Again, I'm seeing about maybe 40% of the room, which is good. Cool. This will help me with calibrate my talk and explain to you what big data is, explain to you what Hadoop is briefly, and then also explain to you what Cloudera is. So before I start, a brief snapshot about Cloudera. We were founded 6 years ago now, almost 6 years ago. I am one of the co-founders for the company. There is 4 founders. I come from Yahoo, so you can see Yahoo's logo up there at the top. My co-founders, they come from Google, Facebook, and Oracle. So there was 4 co-founders for the company. There was only 4 of us 6 years ago. Today, there is more than 600 of us at Cloudera, spread out through the world, and we continue to grow very quickly. We almost double in size as a company every year. Our system is used in mission-critical environments by very large enterprises. I'll give you an example of some of our customers later on in this talk. We have a very large ecosystem of partners, more than 1,000 partners that work with us. We have been training people worldwide about this technology. We have a lot of online training that you can find if you go to university.cloudera.com. But we also do a lot of on-premise training across the world in many cities and companies. This technology is based on open source, which is actually another question I forgot to ask. How many of you heard about open source or open source software? Almost 80% of the room, so that's very good. We have many of the core founders of this open source technology actually are employed and work at Cloudera. We raised a lot of money at Cloudera. For a software company, we actually raised the most that any company has raised as a private software company. We raised more than $1 billion since inception at Cloudera. And that investment comes from companies like Intel, Google, Dell, T. Rowe Price, Excel Partners, Greylock Partners, and there's a number of other very large investors that invested in us. That is a testament to how fast and how big the big data space is. Our mission, which is the last line on the slide, what we try to help our customers with, is help organizations leverage the power of all of their data to ask bigger questions. Legacy technology has been focused only on one type of data, which is what we refer to as structured or relational data. Very well-defined tables that fit nicely in Excel spreadsheets or tables. Data has changed. Data is not only that. Data is much more than that, and we can handle much more than that on the data storage side. But on the consumption side, we also have many ways for consuming that data that allow our customers to ask questions that they couldn't ask from their existing systems. That's what our company does. So with that said, why is this happening today? Why is the big data movement happening today? Why all of this hunger for information and for being able to store more data and do more things with it? It comes from the fact that our enterprises, our companies, our governments, and our organizations are much more sophisticated than ever in terms of how we instrument and collect data about our businesses. Part of that is the fact that a lot of our business is already happening inside of computers, but more importantly, a lot of us today have instrumentation for the real world. We have RFID tags, we have low-power Bluetooth, we have mobile, we have GPS, we have cameras all over the place. We are just collecting way more data than ever before. So I'll give you an example. First, a show of hands. How many of you withdrew cash from an ATM machine before? You put a card in an ATM machine and took cash out. Can you give me some of that cash, please? So I would say about 50% of the room raised their hands. The answer, there will be way more hands in the US, obviously. When we take out money from an ATM machine, 10 years ago, the only information that we captured from that ATM machine was the explicit transaction. Person X at time T withdrew Z dollars from account Y. Very well defined, very structured, very explicit. That's the old way of doing things. Today, we are still doing that. Today, when you collect money from an ATM machine, we're still collecting that explicit transaction. But we're collecting a lot of information around that transaction. The ATM machine actually has a camera taking a picture of your face. The ATM machine sees how you're moving your hand on the touch screen. Each one of us have our own unique biometric signature for how we move our hands. If you have the mobile app for that bank on your phone, then the ATM machine knows you're standing right there in front of the ATM machine. So in addition to the explicit transaction, we are collecting all of that mountain of information around that transaction. And how is that useful? That is useful because it allows us to know our customers much, much better than ever before. In this specific case of banking, by having all of this information from you after you use the ATM machine, we know it's you. It's very hard now for somebody to steal money from your bank account. For somebody to steal money from your bank account, they would have to steal your card, they would have to steal your PIN number, and they will have to steal your face because they need to look like you. They will have to steal your mobile phone so that the location is the same location where they're withdrawing the cash from. They have to be able to mimic how you move your hand on the screen. So you see how, by collecting all of this information, we're able to know our customers and users much better than ever before. That is why. That is why governments, organizations, companies, and enterprises left and right are adopting this technology inside of their organizations. This is a bit more technical. It's the way we used to do things inside of our organizations and the way we should be doing things inside of organizations. The way that we are doing things inside of our organizations today is every time we want to do something with our data, the laser pointer is too weak to show up there, but every time we want to do something with our data, we make a copy of that data beside the application that is going to use it. And we have multiple copies of the same data all over the place inside of our organization every time we want to use that data. Very wasteful, number one, but number two, makes it very hard for us to get a 360 view of our customer. To give you another example from the banking, the finance industry, they will have one copy for mortgage accounts for the same customer that has a checking account, for the same customer that has a brokerage account, for the same customer that has a credit card account, separate copies. And that now prevents them from getting a 360 view of that customer and how are they interacting with that business. That is wrong. The new way, which by the way, Google is the one who advocated this new way. Google published a couple of papers in 2004, about 10 years ago, that painted this picture. Their advice was, no, we need to create one copy of our data, only one copy of our data, everything we know about our users and our customers. And the applications come to the data, not the other way around. The data should not go to the applications. So I have an analogy for you to help explain that concept. Why do you today take way more pictures? I actually saw a bunch of you taking some pictures with your phones right now, using your smartphone instead of your camera. Why? The first answer I always get is the convenience of size. It's the fact it's very small and in my pocket, and I have it with me all the time. But we actually have cameras. We had cameras that were small enough, and they were in our pocket all the time. And in many ways, actually, they were a bit easier to use. They had a nice eye finder and just a button we clicked on to take a picture. A little bit easier to use, but not so much easier to use. The true power of this device is that once you capture that picture, once you capture that data, which is the picture you're taking, that picture is now immediately visible to all of your applications. It's visible to your email, to your Facebook, to your Instagram, to your calendar, etc., etc., etc. You don't have to take out your flash card and go and stick that flash card in your laptop or put a cable between your camera and your laptop to be able to look at the pictures. You get what I mean? That is exactly the power and the mission we want to enable for the enterprise. We want to enable enterprises to capture their data once. It's not going to be in a system this small, by the way. We build very big clusters of servers for that. But the concept is the same. You capture that data once, and then once you capture that data, you can start using it. You don't have to copy it and transform it and change it into another system before you can extract value out of it. That is what we want to enable for you. The old way that we are still doing things, and many of you are still doing inside of your organizations, is this way. Imagine if somebody that came to you and said, instead of buying the smartphone from me, I'm going to sell you a phone, and I'm going to take that phone and put beside it an MP3 player, and then a camera, and a video camera, and a GPS thingy, and then put duct tape around them, and you say, here you go, smartphone. You see how that destroys the whole premise. First, it's obviously very cumbersome. But more importantly, now you have a copy of your data in every single device. It's like saying, I'm going to buy a search engine, and then I'm going to buy a database, and then I'm going to buy a filer, and then I'm going to buy a machine learning system, and I have 6 or 7 or 8 of these systems, each with its own copy of the data, and I can't get a full picture about my business when I have that. That is exactly the problem that we solve at Cloudera for our customers. I am going to skip over the slide for the lack of time. Highly recommend you go and on YouTube. If you go on YouTube and you search for Hadoop, Hadoop is spelled H-A-D-O-O-P, is the word at the top there. Hadoop is the core kernel of the technology that we provide, extremely scalable, extremely fault tolerant. So if you search on YouTube for the word Hadoop, the first result you should get is a talk that I gave at Stanford University that goes in much more depth about how this technology works and why does it solve that problem that I just described to you a second ago. Why it allows you to consolidate all of your data in one place and then bring applications to the data instead of the other way around. So for the lack of time, I can't explain the full technical concepts here in this talk. I want to highlight one point, though. In addition to all the nice benefits of consolidation of data, scalability, and fault tolerance, Hadoop changes the cost formula. It flips the cost formula on its head. Today, with legacy system, it costs us $30,000 for a terabyte of data. I'll say this again. $30,000 for a terabyte of data. That means if you have a petabyte of data, you're talking about $30 million to store a petabyte of data. In the new world, with our platform, you're talking at a few $100s for a terabyte of data, less than $1 million for a petabyte of data. It's an order of magnitude more economical, and that changes completely how you think about how I'm going to extract value from my data. Because now, instead of being constrained, instead of being a world where every time I put a terabyte in, I have to find a terabyte to move out, you literally now have a world of abundance where you can keep all of your data and think about new ways you can extract value from that data. This is our platform. The summary of the platform is a core storage layer that is extremely scalable, reliable, and flexible. And that storage layer has a workload management, which is this horizontal bar that allows you to bring the applications, whether these applications be batch processing, interactive SQL, search, if you want to do search, just like a Google search, on top of all of the data you collected, machine learning, stream processing, and et cetera, et cetera. These are the core benefits of our platform, the core benefits that our platform delivers to our customers. First of all, it's a full fidelity active compliance archive. Let me explain that briefly. Today, we have data in our databases. We run out of space in our database. We send an email to our users and tell them, we ran out of space. We found 2 big tables that nobody used in the last 6 months. We are going to archive these tables, send them to archive, because we can't justify keeping them inside of the database anymore. Do you know what happens next? The users all scream and they say, don't you dare touch these tables. We forgot to use these tables in the last 6 months, but tomorrow morning we're going to be running new queries against these tables. And why do they say that? They say that because they are afraid that once you move these tables to archive, they will never see them again. Tape archive is the graveyard of data. That's where data goes to die. Once data goes to archive, it does not come back. Our system gives you that middle ground. That's what we call the active compliance archive, right? You have the very expensive database. You have the very cheap tape that doesn't allow you to be able to access your data. And in the middle, we give you an active archive. We give you a very economical place where you can keep your data and you can still access it. We simplify that by saying, not all of your data deserves to fly in first class. Very expensive databases are first class. And you should only keep your most important data in there. The rest of your data should be flying in economy class, and that's what our system provides. Next is the scalability of our system accelerates time to insight. We are able to reduce batch processing times from hours to minutes. The speed and scalability of the system is like nothing you have seen before. Don't believe my words. You have to try it out for yourself. And you will see how very big data jobs you have now run much, much quicker within this platform. Next, this platform is extremely agile because of a concept called schema on read that, again, very hard to explain in this talk, but it allows you to be much more agile and innovative as an organization. And then last but not least, the last 2 bullet points on the slide is this system allows you to consolidate all of your data in one place so you get a 360 view of your customers. These are a small list of our app store. So in the same sense that mobile phones have an app store, we have an app store for different applications that you can run inside of our big data platform. And up here you can see an example of some of these. We have more than 300 different software partners that we work with. These are some of the samples of our customers. You can look through the logos up there. This is a small sample of them. But the key message I want to deliver here is when we were pitching to investors 6 years ago, pitching them and why they should invest in us, one of the biggest concerns they had is, you guys come from Google, Facebook, and Yahoo. This technology that you're trying to sell will only be useful for web companies. And a number of our investors turned us down back then. They are regretting that big time right now because we proved that this technology is applicable to every industry you could think of. We have customers right now in the agriculture industry using our technology to collect data from sensor networks and optimize how crops are growing in their fields. In fact, I have 2 examples of our customers, and then I'll end my talk. One example is from a company called Skybox Imaging. Can I get a show of hands if any of you heard about a company called Skybox Imaging? I'm seeing 2 hands go up. Very interesting company. You should go check out their website. They actually use our technology. There's rumors that Google might acquire them this month, so we'll see if that happens. Skybox builds satellites. They build very cheap satellites, imaging satellites. They launch these satellites into space, and their mission is to build something like Google Earth, which is live. Imagine if you have access to a live Google Earth, meaning you're standing on the ground, you use your mobile phone, and you zoom in. Not only do you see a picture, you see yourself standing right there on the ground. Right? So they're launching satellites into space to take live data, live cameras of the entire Earth, and stream that back down. They use our platform to process all of these images and all of these video streams coming down, and they can actually not only assemble the pictures, they can extract information from inside of the pictures. So Walmart, many of you might know Walmart is one of the biggest retail chains there is. Walmart when financial analysts are trying to predict whether they're going to do well in a quarter or not, one of the key metrics they want to look at is how many cars are parked in front of the parking lots in front of Walmart. Now they have access to that data. As of yesterday, they can see how many cars were parked in front of Walmart across the world and come up with a very good, accurate estimate of how much revenues Walmart is going to make. This is my last slide, which is the example from the agriculture industry. When I mentioned earlier, we have an agriculture customer using us. It's a company called Monsanto. Monsanto helps farmers grow more efficient crops out of their farms. They have sensors that measure the temperature, the soil composition, the humidity, the rate of growth of the plants, and the color changes of the plants becoming ripe, turning from green to red, and so on. They collect all of that information, they analyze it using our platform, and they tell the farmers how to change the way they're doing irrigation, how to change the type of seed that they're using to get better, more crops from their fields. With that, I would like to thank you very, very much for paying attention to me throughout this presentation. Thank you.